Hello, everybody. It is Tat from All Ages Geek, and we are here with the Geekening podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. It's been a minute since we had a podcast here on the channel, so this is also really cool to have a group of people here to talk to us about their indie game. They are called Lucid Studios. All their links are going to be down below, so you can definitely check out all the stuff that they're working on. But before we go on with our introductions, if you want to check out more stuff that we have going on, you can go to allagesgeek.com. And you can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/allagesgeek. Now, let us introduce Lucid Studios here with us on the Geeking podcast. Hello, everyone. Introduce yourselves, tell us your name, what you do within the studio, and some random interesting fact about yourself.
Oh no, that's so much pressure. Thank you for the introduction though, Tad.
Yeah, thanks, Tad. Good to be here.
Hello.
Yeah, so a little bit about the studio first. I guess so Lucid Studios, we're a team of 9 developers, and we often describe ourselves as developers of fear-inducing indie titles, inspired by eldritch, nightmarish horrors of Lovecraft and the infernal visions of Dante's Divine Comedy. I'm Ricardo Rieda. I am the lead programmer and also project manager. So I just kind of keep all the technical stuff intact. And fun fact about myself, I don't know, I'm big gamer and nerd, and I fight part-time, so I often get beat up throughout the week.
I'm Delina Martins. I am the creative director and the audio director for the studio and for the project Inferius. So I'm kind of covering all of the creative vision for the project, as well as all of the sound elements, the composition, all that kind of stuff. It's a good time, all the creative stuff. My background is in music. So as you can see, you've got some instruments in the back.
My name is Roche. I'm the game director. I'm also the lead 3D artist here at Lucid Studios. Sorry, you asked for a bit of the background, roles, and something interesting?
Yes.
Okay, so something interesting about me is I tend to forget a lot of things, just case in point. So, no, I love playing video games. I've been playing video games for a long time. Currently, right now, I'm trying to get to a backlog because we've started getting really busy here at the studio and things have picked up. And I didn't think in my life I would ever get to the point that I've got a backlog of video games, which is quite interesting. It's a unique position to be in, I think. But I guess it speaks to all the cool stuff that's coming out. There's a lot of really cool games, a lot of cool indie games, and I really feel like what we're trying to do is be a part of that circle of, you know, standout titles that we're seeing so much of in the indie space lately.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. You all kind of mentioned it, but can you tell me a little bit about Inferius? Like, what is the game about? What can people expect? All the good stuff.
Yeah. So, this is really cool. Inferius is a game about a pilgrimage in the afterlife. You wouldn't typically think of that whenever it gets to the afterlife kind of stuff. But we wanted to give the player an experience, kind of like a journey that they're going on. A lot of our game takes inspiration from the Divine Comedy. Are you familiar with Divine Comedy, Tat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we don't want to replicate Dante's journey, but more take like an inspired by events, right? I don't want to get into too much spoilers, but think the Divine Comedy and all the symbolism that brings with it, right? Paired with Lovecraftian horror. This is our studio really wants to build horror games in a different light. We want to experiment with some fun things, because you can really go nuts with Lovecraft specifically, and the Divine Comedy really kind of takes that. And we're looking for not just ways how we can spice up the storytelling and the environments that are inspired by these characters and these stories, but also through our gameplay. And our gameplay is really something that we're taking a lot of inspiration from roguelike deck builders, first-person horror games like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, or Inscription as well.
Yeah, so a little bit more on the gameplay. Inferius is first and foremost a first-person horror deck builder. So players will be assembling a deck using tarot cards to gamble for their sanity. And all of this while navigating through the Inferno using a lantern to escape from the horrifying creatures hunting you down for your soul. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it's a strategy thriller inspired by the Divine Comedy and the concept of the 9 levels of the Inferno. And you play as the pilgrim, and your goal is to descend each level and eventually escape to purgatory.
Dang. Okay, my next question for you guys is kind of, how did you come up with the idea of combining like Dante's Inferno and Lovecraft horror? Like, where did that idea like come from as like a team? Because obviously you guys are a team. How did the idea even come?
Yeah, so we really love the world building in the Divine Comedy and Dante's depiction of each layer. And we thought we could build on that concept in a really fresh and engaging way. We didn't really want to go with the traditional like fire and brimstone idea of like a burning hell or anything. So instead, we decided to take it the psychological and cosmic horror route and incorporate some Lovecraftian elements as the main direction. So we're diving really deep into each dominion, as we call them. So the levels, we call them dominions. So like lust, treachery, violence, and we're expanding on the darkness of those concepts. We're also playing with concepts like the insignificance of humanity, the fear of the unknown, and just unearthly and terrifying creatures.
Yeah, and kind of like exploring through these 9 dominions, again, like limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, all of those, right? It allows us to introduce like 9 different unique boss encounters. And while working on these concepts, we found cool correlations to Lovecraft horror and built a lot of our first-person horror elements from these familiar tropes. We also use like sanity and souls as a driving factor, which you find within many similar games in these genres. So it involves a little bit of the traditional stuff, but also introduces so much more new mechanics and yeah, exciting gameplay.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm like ready to play it right now.
It's pretty cool, I'll tell you.
So my next question would be like, as like an indie studio, what has been like some challenges you guys have faced like in the process of like making the game or anything in general as like an indie studio?
Yeah, so one of the major challenges that most indie studios face is scope creep. So we need to ensure that things never get out of hand or, you just start tacking on more and more features, right? You want to keep to your design document and not expand the design too much. So we tend to scope to the benefit of the team's strengths and weaknesses. And a major part of our game's design is what can we take out instead of adding in? So like we have this whole big vision. What can we really hone in on and make great? Instead of focusing on 100 things, what is that 5 to 10 things that will like really make this experience?
Yeah, and Ricardo touches on a really important kind of topic there, which is project management, right? It's something that we knew that we would have to tackle early on. We're a primary remote-based studio, so our entire team is scattered across the world. And for us, it was important that, with this being one of our largest titles that we're working on, we wanted to make sure that we can find a good pipeline. And in order to build that pipeline, we needed fantastic project management. And this has been a back and forth conversation. And, we've iterated, prototyped different methods of doing this. Ricardo's front-heading all of the project management related stuff. And we feel like we're getting a good grasp of things. The team is resonating a lot with it, and I really do feel, as an indie studio who is remote based, I can tell you right now, probably other studios can understand what I'm saying. This is challenging, but it is doable if you have someone dedicated to a project manager role.
Mm-hmm. Aside from project management, I think the other thing we've kind of had as a challenge for us is the long adjustment period of getting established as a studio ourselves, because we, you have to kind of have a studio in order to, have a stable project, right? So with that, like, part of that challenge is finding support for the project, both in like funding and industry guidance, all of which just take a lot of time and like trying and failing until something sticks. So luckily this year we've actually had a lot of community support, both like in our city, Edmonton, where our studio is based, and just from other like peer studios, as well as other like industry professionals who are helping kind of like guide us through the business end, all like the setting up of everything in order to make sure our project is like stable and we're able to, keep working on it long term. So I think that's something that we've just this year we've kind of like we finally kind of got all our ducks in a row. But it's been a process, but we've made it through, I think.
Well, congratulations. That's
Thanks.
awesome. That's awesome. How many team members do you have? Because you said you're all remote, or is it just you guys, or there's more folks helping?
No, we have more. Currently we're sitting at a team of nine,
Oh, wow.
8 developers, and then one. Obviously, you've met Amanda, who's running a lot of our communications and community management side of things.
Marketing strategist and all of that.
Yeah,
everyone has a lot of hats, but yeah.
This is interesting because, a game typically requires so many roles to be filled that we've kind of, when we started the studio, was just the 3 of us, and this year is the year that we started expanding. And when it was just the 3 of us, it was easier to manage for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then as the team grew, this is why I mentioned project management was so effective for us and important, because we needed to learn not to work on just the 3 of our schedules that we've been doing for the last 2 years, but now not 8 other developers and 1 community manager, right? So it ended up becoming a lot more of, I want to say, a bit of an experimental process, but through that, we're also, there's a lot that's come out of it that's really propelled the project forward, Project Inferius, to further milestones in a much shorter amount of time that it's phenomenal to see, really.
That's awesome. Congratulations on everything.
Awesome.
My next question kind of goes, I guess, like with working with multiple people. Sometimes we all don't agree on things because everyone's a human and everyone has their own opinions. How do you ensure that everyone's ideas or like creative, like how they want to go about the game or whatever they want to put in the game, are like contributed and valued within your studio?
This is a recent thing that we're starting to kind of like unfold and uncover, right? What we found personally within our studio is we're not just like having, typically in a studio, you would have one person be overall creative lead on everything. That person gets signed off on everything. If you listen to Todd Howard from Bethesda Game Studios, he very famously says that things have to get put on his desk first before he can approve of it. Design ideas, story alterations, all that kind of stuff, right? But it does create a bottleneck situation. And we obviously were nowhere near Bethesda Game Studios, by the way. Let me just make that very clear. But
manifested, though. You are.
You know what? That's one day. But I do like to learn from these studios, right? I like to see how they do things because we can take it and we can scale down, obviously. And for us, we've scaled down to the point where we shared the team with the overall vision of Inferius, what this journey is meant to look like, what kind of art style we're going for, what kind of animation style we're going for, the story. Is the story like grim dark? Does it have elements that we want the player to relate to in certain areas, right? All these things, these creative decisions, we made sure that we took time to really bring it out to the team so that they can start contributing to the details, right? And I really feel like that's where things start shining. A very good example is you can look on our Reddit page, even on Instagram. Actually, I would highly recommend go check out our Instagram. There's a certain creature design that we have there. We're just codenaming it the finger spider, and that should tell you immediately what it is. It sounds horrific just me saying it. And one of our artists, Molly, we told her that, hey, we want to do spiders in one of our levels, but we don't just want to do boring spiders. We want to make it look exciting, unique, right? And she was like, great, I got it, guys. I had a nightmare the other night and I wanted to put it into paper, so here we go. And I'm not even kidding. Within a few hours, she started sending me these concept images. And again, it's on our Instagram. Please go check it out. It is terrifying. And I was like, I don't even want to play my game after seeing that, but it is great. And it resonated with so many people on Reddit, because we typically use that as a bit of a community feedback, like how does the community feel about the direction of things, right? And it was very, very well received. And it just that's part how we want to kind of, like you asked, ensure that our team's ideas and contributions are valued within the studio, but also within the community that we're trying to build, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, like building off of that, because we've taken the time to like really clarify the overall vision of all the elements of the game, we kind of put the ball in the team's court to just kind of like run with it and take inspiration and ideas from that. So it makes it a little bit easier for us to kind of like sift through ideas and figure out what works, because everyone's, you know, coming from the same place. So when we're collaborating on something, we always try to first figure out what our main goal or our main value we want to work towards, and then whoever's involved in that decision-making process can suggest their vision on how to meet that goal, and then we just go from there. We really, really value our team's ideas and perspectives. They bring such great creativity and experience to the project, and we absolutely wouldn't be at the stage we're at now without everyone's input. Our team is super on board, and we're just so lucky to have them.
Yeah. Also, like within the studio, we tend to turn every conversation into a positive one. We value on building on ideas rather than breaking them and rejecting them. So the whole team is very interactive with each other. Like as an example, I, who has zero skills in art, might give like a little bit of feedback on some concept designs, whereas someone who's busy with narrative, for instance, may give some feedback on design. It's just this open conversation that we're always having within the team.
Yeah.
That's awesome. My next question for you guys is, do you have like a memorable brainstorming moment within your team?
Yeah, we have so many. We actually, yeah, we always have such a good time brainstorming for this project. It's so fun. But I think my favorite session was definitely when Roche Ricardo and I held a session to pitch our ideas for the card gameplay to each other. We did this back in December of 2023, so a while ago. We came up with so many cool ideas, and they immediately all started evolving with each other, and we just knew we were onto something so cool with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so like with the card gameplay, to prototype this, we decided to build a paper prototype. So we actually went and bought cards. Yeah, let me show you. Like Dungeons and Dragons tarot cards, and we got some sticky labels. We then like kind of planned out these different designs for the card gameplay, and actually like innovated and iterated over it, as like trying to combine the best ideas into one cohesive system that ultimately works together.
You know what's the best part about game development, Tat, is that you can make it a game on its own, right? Like we've made game development within our studio fun. We've made it, or we haven't made it. It kind of just happened naturally, to be honest, right? Like whenever we get to these milestones and we know that, hey, there's a certain like dramatic creative process that's going to go into solving a certain problem, right? We tend to come up with really strange and weird ways how we're going to solve this problem. like on Christmas Eve, like Delina mentioned, we weren't at our computers. We were going to be home together. So we're like, well, we want to paper prototype this. How can we do it? And we bought those tarot cards, and we ended up doing a pitch night between the three of us. Like we pitched to one another. And I know it sounds silly, but it was so helpful, and it was a lot of fun, you know. And we extended that with the team afterwards, right? So we tend to tell our team, hey, if you have a great idea, pitch it to us. Let's have a session, right? Like turn it into a video game, and eventually, like the whole game development process just it becomes less overwhelming, really.
Yeah, I
That's
think it's
awesome.
just say that that concepting session basically jump started the momentum we've had this year, and it's led to some really amazing results. So we're gonna keep doing it.
Since you guys seem close, and you said that first it started out with you three, how has it been like for you guys adding like new voices and new ideas that you don't necessarily know, or like, I guess you work with them outside of like your area, so you're working all over the world. Like, what has been some of the best parts about adding like more people on your team who you might not have that close bond with when you first start? Like, what has been like the best part about adding those folks to your team?
Yeah,
Like,
I would say it comes almost naturally. Like some of
Yeah.
the, like if we were to say yes and invite everybody who had like great interest of joining the team, if we were to say yes to everybody, we'd probably be a studio of 50 to 100 members by
Right.
now, right? It's so it's been fun integrating everybody into the team and getting to know them personally and just hang out and stuff. It's nice because it's often not the skills that you're too focused on. It's more about the personality of that individual. You can teach a good person to be a great developer, but you can't teach a great developer to be a good person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we involve our studio with a lot of great people and equally great developers. So yeah.
Yeah, I think a big plus that we found from expanding our team is just like the widened perspective we now have with like multiple different people pulling from their own creative background, their own industry experience, right? Facets that the three of us aren't, super skilled in necessarily, right? And we bring those people in to kind of fill the holes that we have in between the three of us. And that kind of allows us to, see further, figure out more options. We have a lot more perspective to work with when we're finalizing decisions. It's really sped up our development process, and I think it's also kind of like required the three of us to be a little bit more like to work on our clarity, to work on our communication a little bit better, to just like make sure that we're able to lead the team properly, right? So it's been a big like growth time for us as well, but yeah, overall just all positives, honestly.
Yay.
Yeah.
I guess my next question would be like, how do you keep everyone in like high spirits during like the hard times of like the development and everything that you guys have going on as like an indie studio?
yeah, that's the current landscape of things around the world. We've never been more connected than ever, right? It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. And with that, you see the team in their highest highs and their lowest lows as well, right? And we really try and encourage people to, if they feel comfortable, communicate. If they feel like they need to get something off their chest, or if they feel like something's frustrating them, or they got something going on in their personal life and they need a personal day off, right? Just however much you can communicate that, it's an open conversation between us. So we're all human. Ricardo, Delina, and I, we make mistakes, right? We have moments where we just need breaks, and it's the same thing with the rest of the team. So we recognize that for ourselves, and we try and recognize that for the team as well. It's been an enlightening process, because typically you focus on just your bubble, but when you start working intimately with other people, you start to learn different sides of them at different times. An example is right now, Ricardo and I, we have a game jam weekend currently going on right now
Oh,
with our team. And if you know anything about game jams, you know that they tend to be all-nighters involved, and that's when you start seeing some interesting sides of people, right? Like myself, I end up not being able to put any kind of sentence together after I hit 2 a.m. I'm 29 years old now, and I definitely can't do this as much as I used to when I was 22, 21. Like I could stay up until 4 a.m. Now it's I'm very quickly learning that's not the case. But regardless of that, you know, it really invites this air of personality between you and your team, right? And I think that's really how we've been able to do it. I know Deline and Ricardo have had their own ways of kind of handling that as well.
Yeah. Luckily we're a really super tight-knit team, and we've kind of, you know, developed that intentionally. Everyone's really passionate about the process and the project, and through it we've been able to grow our trust and our friendship. Not just us, but like the team with the other members of the team as well, right? We're always trying to facilitate bonding moments, sharing moments, and that, like, those bonds and that trust has really been able to carry us through difficult times. We have in our Discord server, we're just always chatting, hanging out. Everyone's kind of got we try to make it a really safe space for people to share and just express themselves, and we really try to make sure that we're supporting the team as much as possible, honestly.
In short, game development is deep.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a creative thing, and anything creative is very like intimate, honestly. So it's like you do have to have that type of bond to make it work. My next question for you, I guess, would be like, what is your personal favorite part of the game? Like maybe if you weren't the developers and you didn't know anything about the game and you just bought the game and you're playing it for the first time, what do you think your favorite thing about the game would be?
So I know for myself, like I'm really deep in the card mechanics at the moment. So I'm focusing on deck building elements with dynamic gameplay involved and taking deep inspiration from some of my favorites like Inscription, Darkest Dungeon, Slay the Spire. And so really finding the opportunity to introduce this gameplay with tarot cards and horror themes and offer a unique gameplay with like the major and minor arcanas introduced in these themes, right?
I think for me, okay, this is a pretty hard question because you said if I had just picked up the game and and was playing it. So a big thing for me for games is like the immersion. I love everything. Like the better something is, like the sound is connected to the visuals, is connected to the gameplay, like everything is cohesive and it speaks well together, I'm happy. So I wanted to make sure that that was the case for Inferius. So for me, my favorite part of the game is the depth we're putting into every element of the game, honestly, which sounds super general, but it's true. So like everything from the lore to the dialogue delivery, the world building, character design, sound design, card design, all this stuff. We're putting such care into every element that the player will be experiencing, and the hope is that players will be just as obsessed with this game as we already are, and we'll keep coming back to try new strategies or just to hang out and play again.
Awesome.
For sure, you're muted.
Your mic's off.
Oh no.
I was trying to think of like my responses as I was hearing Deline and Ricardo, and to be honest, for me, I love it when games tend to make all their systems kind of connected in a sense, right? When the narrative is connected with the gameplay, when the gameplay is connected with the sound, right? When the sound is connected with the environments. All of these things kind of add to the immersion. And for me, I'm excited the most about the immersion that the players can experience when you're in the shoes of the pilgrim, sandals of pilgrim, and you're journeying through these really strange terrains and that we're going to take the player on, right? and you're encountering these rulers, these entities that the player will have to have kind of like a high stakes gentleman card game with, right? And then to the weird family dynamic that's happening in our narrative that the player is going to learn through past pilgrims that they've encountered. And all these connecting threads and elements is really what I'm excited about, the immersion of the story, because that's really a focus for us. Some games do focus on other things, right? Some games like to focus on the feel of the gun when you're shooting, right? Some games like to focus on the sense of exploration when you're Lara Croft going through a tomb, right? For us, it's the immersion of being on that pilgrimage, right? And the horrors that can come with that.
Now, my question for you guys, do you think you would survive if you were thrown into your game? Would you live?
Oh, definitely not.
No, absolutely not.
No, you always think like, oh yeah, I can survive a zombie apocalypse. Like if you just as a quick example, Lust is like riddled with spiders and spider webs. No, we would not survive.
Yeah, no. We're designing this game out of our own fears. And
Got
so there is elements of things that we all personally feel wouldn't do good with.
Oh my God, I love that. I guess my next question for you guys would be like, do you have any goals for your games? Like, do you have like specific amount of downloads you want to get? Do you have like a Kickstarter coming up? Anything like that? Just your general goals for the game.
Yeah, so we are exploring different options and stuff. We do have our Steam page up. We have a target number of wish lists that we do want to fulfill. So right now we're pretty much on track. We're really engaging with our audience on Reddit, Instagram, TikTok. And so getting a lot of engagement and community support from that end. At the end of the day, we do want to be genre defining. So often you get those games like, again, Inscription, Darkest Dungeon, Slay the Spire that have defined genres. And we would love to make that sort of impact within these horrific themes, right? For the horror fans. We want to create deep associations with the deck building elements and encourage players to really adapt their deck to their play styles. And so with all of this, we have goals to target various platforms, console, PC, and also take a large focus on accessibility to be more inclusive for that part of our audience.
Yeah, basically, we really just want to deliver a high quality cinematic horror deck building game that players who love strategy games and players who love horror games can both enjoy. We're primarily a horror studio, and we definitely want to establish ourselves in the genre with this game.
And the thing is, like, we're not trying to be kind of like a, casual hobby studio, right? For us, we do have a vision for the studio in the long term. We want to stick around and see how much we can experiment with the horror genre as much as possible. And in terms of storytelling, in terms of gameplay, sound design, all this kind of stuff, right? But we do know that we need to earn our place first, right? We need to earn the community. We need to earn that kind of those wish lists that we're asking for so generously for, which, by the way, link hopefully is around. But for us, we want to make sure that people, when they see our Steam page, the first thing they're going to be like is, that looks horrifying. I want to check that out. And for me, that's a good indicator that we've done a good job in terms of earning the player's interest. And then after that, their dollar when our game comes on sale.
Awesome. Just an easy way to say, I want to scare people.
Yeah, basically. Basically. Yeah. I want you to know what it feels like when I played Alien Isolation for the first time and how terrified I was. Yeah, that's what I want everyone else to feel like.
You're probably the only group of people I know who want nightmares. You're like, it just influences everything I do.
Seriously, yeah.
I love it. How do you guys as a team like celebrate when you achieve these milestones together?
Yeah, I mean, there's Honestly, always something to celebrate. Like we've had a lot of big wins this year. We've had a lot of little wins this year. Being remote is a little tricky because we can't, meet up and, have drinks to celebrate or something. So we are always taking the time to just like get the team together, share the good news, get people excited about what's, coming up next. And we always give praise and credit where it's due. If one of our team members is popping off, then we are going to absolutely highlight that. But yeah, we are always try to be really intentional about making sure that that's kind of the focus. It's less of the negatives and stuff, and the positives always really help to kind of like propel things forward. So we're always focused on that.
Awesome. And then just by talking to you guys, I could tell you guys have like a strong bond, which I love because that's very hard to find. So it's awesome to see other teams like having that strong bond working together. So what piece of advice would you give to other indie game studios trying to maintain like a strong bond and teamwork? Because it is hard to do because like humans, we don't always get along. So like what advice would you give to like, I guess like a newer studio trying to build like a team that does have that strong like idea of what teamwork actually means?
I think, this is a good question because part of one of my part-time jobs is managing indie teams on a different kind of scale. And one of the things I'm noticing quite a lot is, we're so focused on the product, we tend to forget about the people involved in the product, right? The industry right now is kind of going through a really, really bad time. Obviously, I get more expressive with my words, but I'm trying to keep it PG here. But it is really frustrating, right? I mean, Bungie just laid off people not too long ago. We've heard about numerous studio closures just this year alone, right? And from what I'm understanding, it's going to continue in for the rest of the year. I've spoken to numerous game developers who worked on some incredible titles at BioWare, because we live here in Edmonton where BioWare is located, and I've spoken to some developers, and they've made some of the games that I grew up with, right? And to see what's happening to all these developers across the board, it can be quite disheartening. Yeah, especially for people who want to start this kind of journey, right? It does take a certain level of iron will. It takes a lot of resistance. I think game developers in general are, quite resilient people because they know what they're about to get themselves into. But I would say for other indie studios, when you're creating and building your team, create an air of collaboration, right? Create an air of openness and try and find ways to see how you're building on another team member's strengths and they're building on yours, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to very quickly realize you can't do everything. As much as indies tend to wear multiple hats, and you see all these success stories on YouTube, and don't get me wrong, those success stories are phenomenal, but that is the 1%. Most people are not going to be part of that 1%. And working with people, building something like this with people does make it a lot easier. But you do need to be able to understand that, hey, this is a completely different human being. This sounds weird, but I like to think of it like you're living with another person, right? Like when you move in with a new roommate, you're like really excited and like you both have these ideas what it could look like, but then just in the back of your mind, you're like, but we both have private things that, we want our own space for and time for, right? So then you need to navigate those waters. That is game development through and through. You're gonna run into that. So be aware of that, be open with that, and understand that, everyone is human. We all have our, struggles in life. Game development's meant to be kind of like, an extension of everything that you want to be and do in this space.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd say, not restating everything Rashay is saying, but idea wise, like obviously there's the main overall vision, but everyone's coming in. You've selected your team hopefully for a reason, right? With their expertise in mind, right? So when they're bringing ideas to you, stay positive and receptive to those, right? See if you can find a way to work with them. we like to always make sure that there's time and avenues to bond. There's a level of trust that goes into working on a project with other creative people. And it's really important to take the time to get to know and connect with those people, because there's a lot of vulnerability in creativity, right? So it's for us, that's a huge reason why I feel like our team is so strong, is because we've intentionally facilitated those moments, those bonding times, to make sure that everyone's has a really safe space to express those creative ideas. Because a lot of times, you know, depending on however they used to be treated in whatever industry they were in before, you know, like there can be some PTSD, right, from old jobs and from old bosses and stuff. And so we want to make sure we really facilitate a safe and like collaborative space for people to bring their ideas forward, because we really value those.
Yeah, I think the gist of it is we really highly promote open communication across the team, and for everybody to take time for themselves and also focus on their own personal life. And then together we can weather the storm of this indie game industry as a team.
Awesome. I love that. I have 3 more questions for you guys until we end the podcast, but this is one of my favorite questions to ask developers, because some people are like, they get stumbled on this one, but like, how would you pitch your game in 3 to 5 words? All of you have to have a different answer.
Can't copy.
How PG is this podcast?
You can say whatever you want.
Oh,
It's fine.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Holy shit, it's got 6 legs. That's and they're not regular legs. Oh, I'm already over my
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, my pitch is Nightmare Fuel, bring it on.
Oh,
I'm all into facing the fears.
I'll make some correlations. So like basically Amnesia meets Inscription in hell. There we go.
Oh, I'm scared. It's fine. What are you guys currently working on at this moment?
We are working on a demo of Inferius to be playable. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we've been working hard at a demo focusing on this card gameplay, kind of just to like add it to our Steam page. People can get a feel of that core gameplay loop. But then again, there's a whole first person game with narrative and everything to explore further. But yeah, we really want to provide a deep gameplay experience for everyone and allow them to get a sense of the game's themes and the horror introduced in all of that.
Can we take a minute and just be so appreciative of the fact that demos are coming back? Because there was a period in the industry where demos just kind of like scattered off, and then Steam suddenly came out and like, hey, you can now upload a demo of your game so people can actually get a good feel for it. Yeah, that's I would say that's accurate. The demo right now is currently our main focus. We need to see if the ideas that we've been prototyping will essentially work and gel well, and where they don't, where we can start making modifications. Because you know, a lot of our ideas are great, I would say, not tooting my own horn, but
they are great.
They're
our
awesome.
ideas, yeah, our ideas are awesome, but how they're coming into implementation is another thing entirely, right? And a lot of gameplay is a lot of game development is just straight up testing. So we would love it if the community would work with us on that.
And then my last question for you guys is, I guess, where can folks support you? And just anything else you want to say about your studio or your project?
Folks can support us almost everywhere. The most helpful thing for indie studios is wishlisting the game. So please, if you have the time, wishlist Inferius on Steam. It'll be amazing, I promise you. We also have an active Discord community and share a ton there, like just some random discussions on the most random things. It's a good time just to come hang out. And then we also post a ton of great content on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Reddit, YouTube. All of this is at Lucid Studios, so you can find our handle on almost any platform.
We would love if people would share Inferius with friends, if people know people who would love it. Also, if you know people who would hate it, share it with them even more.
Make them like it.
Yeah.
The big thing for us is we really want to build that community. That's why we're starting now instead of like at the end of development, which is typical for a lot of studios, right? We really wanted to build that community early. Discord is pretty much the way to communicate with us directly. We'd love to communicate with people that have questions about development, questions about how we're starting, questions about the game. Absolutely. The game is currently our primary focus. And then, when it comes to our individual updates, Instagram is for all of our image updates. Reddit, like huge community updates over there. Threads, you can come chat to me personally over there. I'm pretty active on Threads. X banned us, so can't do X, nor do I want to. That's fine
banned
too.
You guys?
Yeah, they thought we were a bot.
They thought we were a bot.
It's really dumb.
And I have for the last 3 years sent them messages. I've sent them a photo of my ugly mug, and it's still not.
They don't believe us.
They don't believe it. They think that we are just a one incident.
A little bit of company drama. When X was transferred from Twitter to X, a lot of the customer support got fired. So there isn't really customer support now. So stuff like trying to argue that no, we're humans, we're indie studio, we're alive. There's no one really to handle those requests.
Yeah.
It's a rough time.
It's a blessing in the sky. I'm not mad about it. We don't need X. I feel like the YouTube community is great. We really enjoy the YouTube community. Got a small channel ourselves that I upload like devlog updates on.
Cool.
So if you're interested in seeing some video updates, definitely come check us out over there. And then Reddit, TikTok, we're also gonna start picking up our TikTok game as well.
Yeah, and then like on Reddit, for instance, I post some cool things going on with the development. And then, so there'll be a weekend that I need to dedicate to like answering to comments and stuff because I love responding to people. They've got a bunch of questions and I make it a point to respond to almost everyone. But that's like 400 to 600 comments that, I need to go through and like interact with. So I love it. Come interact. Come make my weekend packed.
Give him work.
Yeah, he loves work.
I love it. All right, well, thank you guys so much for talking to me and telling me about your story and your game and everything you guys have going on. If you didn't hear them already, be sure to wish list everything on Steam. Everything is linked down below, so you can just click on the link and press wish list. It's very simple. You got to do it. Support your indies. Thank you guys again for everything and chatting with us about your story, everything else. And again, wish list it. Do it. It is a threat. It is not a request. You must do it. You got to get scared. So please make sure you have check out everything Lucid Rain Studios has going on. They're an incredible team. And we absolutely would love to have you guys on again later on when the game is in more development to chat more about what you have going on with the game. But Thank you again.
Yeah, we'd love to come back.
Yeah,
awesome. Thank you so much, Tat.
Until next time, my friend. Bye.
Do you guys want a backlog of uncut reactions where you can have hours and hours of entertainment on end?
Yes!
Well, here's the thing! If you join patreon.com/allagesgeek, you guys can get those uncut reactions, which means more time with us.
What kind of shows do you have?
We have all things like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto Shippuden, Fairy Tail, One Piece, SAO, and lots and lots and lots of Kamen Rider.
Join today.